Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Weird Files. It's great to see you all here again, back at the Weird Files. Today, for today's case, we'll be covering the Philadelphia experiment. I mentioned in the previous episode that's what we were going to be covering, and of course, like I promised, we're covering it today. So, let's begin with the Philadelphia experiment, everybody. So the Philadelphia experiment took place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on October 28th, 1943, when the destroyer-class ship known as the USS Eldridge was used in an experiment with time travel and teleportation by the United States government. They teleported the ship, the USS Eldridge, all the way 200 miles across to Norfolk, Virginia. But the strange thing about that as well is that it appeared in Norfolk, Virginia prior to it leaving Philadelphia. So when it was still in Philadelphia, it appeared in Norfolk minutes before it disappeared, as part of it was time travel. That's why it was there prior to leaving. And of course, a 200-mile teleportation is a pretty big feat, especially for a big ship like the USS Eldridge. Now, according to reports, when it disappeared and got teleported, a green fog engulfed the whole ship. And after the green fog had engulfed it and went away, the ship was gone. Completely gone with the fog and teleported. Now, eventually, after a few minutes, it was teleported back to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right? That's when it all happened. Aboard the ship was the crew, but upon their return, multiple members of the crew had disappeared, some of them had fused and melted in with the metal of the walls, and many of them had just completely gone insane. The whole experiment was a failure, and it was covered up to cover up the many unexplainable disappearances, as some of them had even just burst into flames. They were just fine 1 second, bam, spontaneous combustion the next second. And the project was now the end of the Philadelphia experiment, as it was proven to be it worked, but not with people. Now, the story I just told you is what allegedly happened on October 28th, 1943. Yeah, keep that date in mind. October 28th, 1943. Now, how exactly did we find out about this? Let me explain. In 1955, a man known as Jessup Morris had published a book called A Case for the UFO, 1955, making a case for the possibility of extraterrestrial life and UFOs. Now, maybe we aren't alone in this universe. Now, this book became extremely popular amongst the group of extraterrestrial believers in the 1950s, and eventually, in the later half of 1955, he got mailed a copy of his own book by a man known as Carl M. Allen. This book copy of the book had writings in the margins, with the writings being in different shades of blue, different handwriting styles, and even different types of punctuation to try and make the illusion of there being free writers within the margins of the book. Okay? And these alleged people that Carl Allen attempted to make up by using these tactics of different shades of blue, different punctuation styles and writing styles, talked about the possibility of extraterrestrial life, UFOs, alien races, and people living in outer space. They also mentioned directly the Philadelphia experiment and feared that Jessup Morris was getting too close to the truth. Now, eventually, beginning in January of 1956, Carl Allen began sending letters to Jessup Morris under a fake pseudonym. And within these letters, he detailed the accounts of the Philadelphia experiment, as he claimed to have actually seen himself for the first hand while he was stationed at a ship nearby, and he saw the whole event go down himself. Now, eventually, Jessup Morris was brought into the Office of Naval Research and was questioned about it, as they had been able to get their hands on this version of the book. And a lot of the stuff that was talked about in these writing marks was actually very close to what the government was actually working on at the time. And they want to know, hey, where'd you get this information from? And they questioned him about the book and the writings and the margins and stuff. Now, eventually, Jessup realized that the writing style in these the letters from this big pseudonym guy were very similar to the writing styles and the letters in the margins of his book he had been sent. And comparing them, they were very clearly written by the same person. Now, alongside that, if you look at records at the time, it shows that the USS Eldridge was not in Philadelphia at the time. It was actually a completely different place on that date of October 28th, 1943. Alongside that, of course, Carl Allen has come out over recent years and said that he made it up. He just wanted to scare Jessup, according to what he said about the letters. He made those letters, sent those letters specifically to scare him. Alongside that, Allen's family have all claimed that he was a quote unquote master leg puller, end quote, showing that what really happened was just a big hoax. Now, it did inspire a movie in the 1980s though, and it's still, and of course, it's connected to the Montauk Project, which we talked about on our last episode, ladies and gentlemen. Please check that out before watching this video. It's a little bit late for that now, isn't it? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I gotta say for today. I hope you had a great time enjoying this video, as much as I did making it. So, all I gotta say is, bye, have a nice time.